All right, guys, how are you today, man? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're walking with the Lord. Hope you're letting Jesus be Jesus in you, that you're really living a surrendered life and you're just walking with Jesus every day, abiding in Him and letting Him do in and through your life what He desires to do. And that's kind of what we've been talking about in the book of James, just very, very practical stuff. We've been dealing with the passage, James chapter 1, verses 19 through 21. We've talked about the need for us to be quick to hear and slow to speak, which most of us in reality struggle with. But I told you from the very beginning, a very, very practical book that we can take and apply it to our lives, empowered by God's presence in my life. See, the key to this whole thing is surrender. The key is learning to let Jesus be Jesus in and through my life. I'm going to go back and start reading with verse 19. We're going to go ahead and dive into this passage and see what God has for us today. It says, "This you know, my beloved brethren, but let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak." And then he says this, slow to anger, and that's where we'll start today. And he says, "For the anger of God does not achieve the righteousness of God." For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all that remains in wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your soul. It says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and then he says slow to anger. For the anger of God does not, the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. I need to be slow to anger, slow to get mad, slow to lose my temper. The picture here is someone that gets mad quickly and there's an outburst. There's an outburst of anger. There's kind of a spewing on other people, and I'm sure that you've been around people like that lose their temper quickly, and it may be you. Can I tell you that simply what needs to happen is that I need to place that anger under the authority of God and let Him do a work in my heart about my temper, because it's not pleasing to God. So what's the key to me being slow to anger? There is a righteous anger. This is not talking about a righteous anger. Did Jesus get mad? Was Jesus angry? Yes, He flipped over some tables, but it was a righteous anger because Jesus didn't sin. But oftentimes in our life, what happens is something happens and I lose my temper and I end up acting or responding in a way that's not pleasing unto the Lord. And it's an unrighteous anger. It does not achieve what God desires for my life to achieve. It don't paint the picture to people that I'm walking with Jesus, and it does not please God. So the key is surrender. The key is allowing Jesus to be Jesus in me. And he says three things he states right here. All right. He says, look, you need to be quick to hear, you need to be slow to speak, and you need to be slow to anger. I can remember being around people who just lost it immediately. And I mean just spewed all over everyone. That's a quick way to lose our testimony. It's a quick way to hinder the advancement of the gospel. But let Jesus be Jesus over your temper. All right. And then one other comment today. He says that in verse 21, he says, putting aside all filthiness. Notice what he says here. He says, therefore, putting aside filthiness, all that remains of wickedness. He says, look, there's some stuff that you need to put aside. I need to be clean. I need to put aside some stuff. I need to put aside some things that are not pleasing to the Lord, some actions and maybe some language. It says here, filthiness. It comes from a word that means dirty or obscene. Why? Because that's no longer who I am. All right, because of whose I am, because of my relationship with the Lord, there's some things that I realize that need to go, that I need to set aside. It's kind of like taking off a garment. That I'll take my shirt off, I'll lay it over here. That's filthiness. That's dirtiness. That's wickedness. That's wicked habit. That's not only practicing wickedness, but being wicked, being evil. He says that's not to be a part of your life anymore. All right, so be clean. Allow His presence in my life to clean me, to cleanse me, to help me in what the actions that I do and what comes out of my mouth, because it's talking about not only action, it's also talking about is talking about language. You know, sometimes I'm amazed at the language that comes out of people's mouth. Now, in all honesty, I hadn't been around that type of stuff a lot in my life. I didn't grow up around it. I wasn't raised in it. Never had a real issue with language in my life. Now look, I've had plenty of issues in my life that I've had to surrender to the Lordship of Jesus, but language has never really been one of them that I really struggle with. But I know people that do. But can I tell you that the Jesus in you is much greater than the language that you used to use. And if you will surrender to Him and give Him right over that, He will change what comes out of your mouth. And the same thing with actions. You know, when I get saved, He comes and lives in me through the person of the Holy Spirit to change every detail of my life. And that stuff that's been wrong, that stuff that's been evil, that stuff that's been wicked, that I've been a part of, I take that stuff because I'm not who I used to be, and I set it aside. Will there be times that I struggle with it? Yes. But I know that it's no longer to be a part of my life, that I want my life to bring Him honor and to bring Him glory. Therefore, I'm willing to set some things aside. Again, James says, look, this is some stuff that you know, my beloved brethren. The word brethren there means of the same spiritual womb. He's writing to born-again believers, and he states some things here that need to change. That he says, I think you know this, but you need to practice it. You need to practice being a good listener. You need to be quick to hear. You need to be slow to speak. You need to slow down. You need to slow down being so eager to talk. Learn to listen, all right? Talk less, listen more. All right? Be slow to anger. Don't let your temper get the best of you. Give that to Jesus. Put it under the lordship of Jesus. Remember, He's God, I'm not. I need to live life under His authority. And the same thing with wickedness. Be clean. Let Him cleanse you from the inside out. And one of the neat things about God getting a hold of our heart and changing our lives is this. Transformation takes place, and transformation is a work of God, something I can't do myself. It's a work of God on the inside, and guess where it begins to show up? It begins to show up on the outside. It shows up in my language. It shows up in my action. Therefore, do not allow my anger to displease God. Don't let things come out of my mouth, and don't let my actions be evil anymore, but let them present a picture of how God can radically change a person's life, a life like mine, and a life like yours. Again, James says, this is some stuff you know, now go practice it. I need to practice it, and you need to practice it. Let's be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, because we understand that our anger does not achieve the righteousness of God, and let's lay aside those things that are not pleasing to Him. Let's surrender them to Jesus. Go let Jesus be Jesus in you today as you walk with Him and be a living testimony to the grace and the power of God. Have a good day. Thank you so much for watching Complete in Christ as we strive to teach you about the Christ life. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and may you have a blessed day walking with Jesus.